A cat leapt into her taxi and wouldn't budge. She thought it was just a stubborn stray, until she realized why it chose her car. "That is not my cat," the passenger said. He laughed and shrugged, then slid into the back seat like nothing strange had happened. The cat did not move. It sat on the front passenger seat, calm as anything, staring straight through the windshield like it was ready for the road. Tessa Wexler had driven a taxi for 11 years. She had seen drunk men cry about their mothers. She had driven a woman to the hospital mid-labor. She had once found a live chicken in her trunk. But a cat walking into her vehicle like a paying customer, that was new. "Sir, is this your cat?" she asked again. The man held up both hands. "I swear, never seen it before." Cat was coal black from nose to tail, not a single white hair anywhere. Its eyes were a deep, liquid gold, the kind of yellow that almost glowed in dim light. Around its neck sat a red collar with a small, round tag. Tessa leaned over and tried to scoop it up. The cat flattened its ears and let out a low, firm growl. She pulled her hand back. "Fine," Tessa muttered. "You win." She put the car in gear. The meter was running. She had fares to pick up, and a cat was not going to ruin her Tuesday. The man in the back seat chuckled quietly. "Looks like you have got yourself a co-pilot." Tessa glanced at the cat. It had settled deeper into the seat. Then it turned its gaze out the window as the city began to slide past. Something about that look made her chest tighten. She dropped the man off on Haywood Road and sat for a moment in the idling car. The smart thing would be to pull over, grab the cat, and take it to the shelter. That was the responsible thing. But the cat looked so comfortable, and she had her next pickup in 4 minutes. She told herself she would deal with it after the next fare. Just one more ride. That one more ride turned into 2, then 3, then 4. Before we continue with the rest of this unbelievable shift, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It really helps the channel. The reason this cat came to her taxi is something you probably wouldn't expect. The first fare after the cat's arrival was a young woman heading to the train station. She opened the back door and froze. "Oh my God, is that a cat?" "He just showed up," Tessa explained. "I cannot get him out." The woman slid in carefully. The cat turned its head and regarded her with royal indifference. "He is gorgeous," the woman whispered. She pulled out her phone and snapped 3 photos before they even left the curb. The next passenger was a businessman in a gray suit. He climbed in without looking, and then he saw a cat. His briefcase nearly fell from his hands. "There is a cat in this taxi." "Yes," Tessa said, "there is." "Why is there a cat in this taxi?" "He refused to leave." The businessman stared at her, then at the cat. Then he did something Tessa did not expect. He laughed. A deep, genuine laugh that shook his shoulders. He laughed so hard his eyes watered. "This is the best taxi ride of my life," he said. He loosened his tie and leaned back. He even scratched Cat behind the ears, and he allowed it. Tessa watched in the mirror. The businessman's face had softened. He looked 10 years younger. "Rough morning?" she asked. "Rough year," he said quietly. Then he smiled at the cat. "But this helps." He tipped her double when he got out. But not everyone was charmed. Around 11:30, she picked up a man in a crisp polo shirt heading to the Biltmore Park office complex. He climbed in, saw the cat, and his expression went flat. "There is a cat in this car." "Yes, sir, he kind of—" "I am allergic. Severely. Is this some kind of joke?" Tessa's stomach dropped. "I am so sorry. He showed up this morning and I have not been able to—" "This is a taxi, not a pet store." The man was already pulling out his phone. "I am calling another car. You should not have animals in a vehicle that carries the public." He got out and shut the door harder than necessary. Tessa sat there, face burning. He was not wrong. She knew he was not wrong. There were rules about this kind of thing. If the company got a complaint,
she could lose her shift, maybe worse. She looked at the cat. He had not reacted to any of it. He sat on his seat, calm and unbothered, washing one paw with slow, careful strokes. "You are going to get me fired," she told him. He did not look up. He just kept washing his paw. Around lunchtime, she parked near the French Broad River and ate a sandwich in the front seat. The cat sat beside her, watching the water through the window. She tore off a small piece of turkey and offered it. He sniffed it carefully, then ate it from her palm with surprising gentleness. "So who are you?" she asked him. She reached over and turned the tag on his red collar. One side had a small engraved paw print. She flipped it over. An address. Neat block letters. 18 Fairview Lane. She did not recognize the street, but that was fine. She had a GPS and the whole afternoon ahead of her. She would finish her shift and take him home. Simple. Except nothing about this day was turning out to be simple. Her next fare was a teenager. He got in, spotted the cat, and his entire mood shifted. He went from slouching and silent to wide-eyed and grinning in half a second. "No way! Is that a real cat?" "Very real," Tessa said. "Can I pet him?" "He seems to allow it."
He reached out, and the cat butted his forehead right into the boy's open hand. The teenager melted. "My mom will not let me have a cat," he said. "She says they are too much work." He scratched under the cat's chin, and a purr filled the entire car, deep and rattling, like a small engine. Does she hear this? This is the opposite of work. This is medicine. Tessa laughed. Even the cat seemed to be enjoying himself, eyes half closed, leaning into every scratch. When the teenager got out near the community college, he ducked back down to the window. "Hey, if you ever want to start a business, you should call it the cat taxi. I would ride that every day." The cat taxi. Tessa smiled and shook her head. Ridiculous. But the name stuck in her mind. The afternoon brought more fares and more reactions. One elderly woman burst into tears the moment she saw him. "I lost my cat last month," she told Tessa, her voice trembling. "He was black, too. His name was Oliver." Cat walked across the back seat and placed one paw on the old woman's knee. The woman stroked his fur with shaking fingers. She did not say another word for the entire ride. When she got out, she held Tessa's hand through the window. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea what this meant." Then there was a woman in running gear who wrinkled her nose the second she got in. "Is that sanitary?" she asked, eyeing the cat like it carried a disease. Tessa offered to call her a different cab, but the woman waved her off and sat as far from the cat as the back seat allowed. She spent the entire ride with her arms crossed and her lips pressed thin. When she got out, she did not tip. But after her, an older man with a cane got in around 3 o'clock. He said nothing about the cat, did not acknowledge it at all, sat in the back seat and stared out the window in silence for the entire ride. But when Tessa glanced in the mirror, she saw it. The cat had climbed into the back seat at some point. It sat right beside the old man. And the man was crying, silently, tears rolling down his weathered face. Tessa said nothing. Some moments are not meant to be interrupted. When the man got out, he pressed a folded 20 into her hand and held it there for a second. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough. That was all. He did not explain. The sun began to drop. Orange light flooded through the windshield. Tessa's shift was ending. She had driven 14 fares today. Most had smiled because of the cat. A few had been annoyed or uncomfortable. 3 had cried. 5 had tipped extra. 2 had asked if they could adopt him. A handful of passengers had taken photos. And through all of it, the cat sat on his seat like a small, furry anchor, calm and present and completely at ease. But she could not keep driving with a cat forever. She knew that. The company had rules. Health regulations existed. Sooner or later, someone would file a real complaint. Tessa picked up the tag on his collar again. 18 Fairview Lane. Time to take this guy home. His family was probably worried sick. The drive took 40 minutes. Rush hour traffic crawled. Cat sat upright in the passenger seat the whole time, alert, watchful, his tail flicking back and forth as the streetlights began to glow. Tessa turned onto Fairview Lane. She counted the numbers. 10, 12, 14, 16. Then she stopped. Number 18 did not exist. A chain-link fence surrounded an empty lot, broken concrete, piles of rubble. A single wall still standing, half demolished, with wallpaper peeling off it. Faded yellow wallpaper with tiny flowers. Someone's bedroom wall. Tessa sat in the car for a long time. Cat stared out the window. His ears flattened against his head, and a small, quiet sound escaped his throat. Not a meow, something lower, something sad. He recognized this place. "This was your home," Tessa whispered. The cat pressed his nose against the glass. She stepped out of the cab. The neighboring houses were still standing. A man stood in the yard next door, coiling a garden hose. He was maybe 60, with a weathered face and work boots. The kind of man who had lived in the same place for decades. He watched her approach with tired eyes. "Excuse me," Tessa called. "Do you know what happened to the house here, number 18? The man looked at the empty lot. "Condemned and demolished. About 3 months ago. Roof caved in after the big storm." "The family that lived here, where did they go?" He shrugged. "The Tillmans. Moved out of state somewhere. Virginia, I think. It happened fast. 1 week they were here, the next they were loading a trailer." Tessa's throat felt tight. She already knew what she was going to ask, and she already dreaded the answer. "They had a cat," she said. "A black cat." The man stopped coiling. He looked at her, and something shifted in his face, something uncomfortable. "Yeah," he said. "They had a cat." "Did they take him with them?" The man looked away. "No," he said. "They did not." The words landed like stones. "They just let him out the morning they left. I saw it from my kitchen window. The wife opened the front door, and the cat walked out like it was any normal day. Then they got in the car and drove off." Tessa felt something hot rise in her chest. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. They did not bring him to a shelter? Did not ask anyone to look after him? The man shook his head. "I think they figured he would wander off, find someone. Cats do that, right?" He did not sound convinced by his own words. "I thought about taking him in, but my wife has allergies. I saw him around for a while, sitting on the rubble, waiting." The man paused, and his voice dropped. "He sat there every day for the first month, right where the front door used to be, just waiting for them to come back." He paused. "I should have done more. I know that." Tessa could not speak. Her throat had closed shut. She walked back to the cab and opened the passenger door. The cat sat there, looking at her. Those golden eyes held something she could not quite name. Something deeper than sadness. Something like a question he had been carrying for 3 months. "Are you going to leave me too?" She sat down in the driver's seat. For a long time, she did not start the engine. She just sat there, looking at the empty lot through the windshield. He had waited a month. 30 days. Sitting on broken concrete in the rain and the heat. Watching for a door that no longer existed. Listening for voices that would never return. And when he finally understood they were not coming back, he did the only thing he could do. He moved on. Instead of hiding, instead of giving up, he had walked up to a taxi, slipped in when someone else opens the door, and sat down. He had chosen her. Tessa reached over and rested her hand on the cat's back. He leaned into her touch, and that deep, rattling purr started up again. "Hugo," she said. She did not know where the name came from. It just felt right. Strong, dignified. A name for a cat who had survived something terrible and still had the courage to trust a stranger. Hugo purred louder. "You are coming home with me," she said. "And I am not going anywhere." She drove home in silence. Tessa lived alone in a small apartment on the 3rd floor. 2 rooms, a tiny kitchen, and a balcony that overlooked an old magnolia tree. She carried Hugo up the stairs. He did not struggle. He leaned into her arms, and his warmth seeped through her jacket and settled around her heart. Inside, she set him on the floor. He explored cautiously. Then he jumped up onto her bed, turned around exactly 3 times, and lay down. Tessa stood in the doorway and watched him. Her eyes stung. She was not the kind of woman who cried easily. 11 years of driving a taxi had taught her to keep her composure in almost any situation. But something about this small, abandoned creature making himself at home, cracked something open inside her. She wiped her eyes and went to the kitchen. She didn't have cat food, but she had several slices of ham. She put it in a bowl and set it on the floor. Hugo appeared within seconds, and he ate like he had not had a proper meal in weeks. "Welcome home," she said. That night she could not sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Hugo slept at the foot of the bed, his body rising and falling with each peaceful breath. But Tessa's mind raced. She wondered how anyone could look at a creature so loyal, so trusting, so full of love, and simply drive away. And she made a decision. The next morning, Tessa went to the dispatch office. Her supervisor, a gravel-voiced man named Ray, sat behind a cluttered desk. "I want to bring a cat in the cab," she said. Ray stared at her. "No." "Passengers loved him. I had the highest tips of any driver yesterday." "No." "Ray, listen to me. He rode with me all day yesterday. Most of the passengers loved him. One woman said it was the best cab ride she had ever taken." "And the ones who did not love him?" Tessa hesitated. "One guy was allergic. He got out and called another car. A woman thought it was unsanitary." "So we lost fares." "We lost 2, but I got tipped double on 6 others." Another pause. "1 week," Ray said finally. "Trial run. If I get a single complaint to the office, the cat stays home. Clear?" Crystal clear. The trial week came and went without a single formal complaint reaching the office. There were passengers who were not thrilled. A woman who asked to switch to a different car, a man who sneezed twice and gave Tessa a look, but nobody called to report it. And the passengers who loved Hugo far outnumbered the rest. Hugo took to the work like he was born for it. He seemed to understand on some deep, feline level exactly what each passenger needed. He handled the attention with the dignity of a creature who had survived far worse. He sat on his seat like a small, furry king. He purred for strangers and comforted the lonely, made children laugh. One evening, about 6 months after Hugo first jumped into her cab, a woman with a rolling suitcase climbed into the back seat at the airport and immediately gasped. "Is this the cat taxi? My friend told me about you when I said I was visiting your city." Tessa smiled. "That is us." Hugo turned around and regarded the woman with his golden eyes. Then he turned back to the window. The woman laughed. "He is even cooler than she described." Tessa pulled away from the curb and headed for the highway. She thought about that first morning, the cat slipping through the open door, the way Hugo had sat down on that seat with such quiet certainty, as if he already knew where he was going. Maybe he did. Maybe he had spent months on that empty lot, learning the hardest lesson any creature can learn, that love does not always stay, that the people you trust can drive away and never come back, that home can vanish overnight, torn down to rubble and pipes and dirt. And maybe, after all that, he decided to believe anyway.
To walk up to a stranger's car and climb in. To bet everything on one more chance. That is the bravest thing any living creature can do. Because home is not an address on a tag. Home is the person who stays. Thank you for watching. If this story stayed with you, a like, comment, or subscription truly helps me keep sharing more stories you will love.